Good day, everyone. I'll be displaying few videos for our opening before we start our class for week 5 and 6. Okay, of course, we have to be aware of our surroundings, and so with the COVID-19 and this pandemic, let's watch this one and let's stay safe.
COVID-19 is a disease caused by the new coronavirus. Know the symptoms. They include fever, coughing, muscle pain, shortness of breath. What can you do? Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for 20 seconds or use an alcohol-based hand rub. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth with a tissue or flexed elbow. Discard tissues into a closed bin and then wash your hands. Maintain a distance of at least 1 meter between yourself and someone who is ill. Seek medical help if you display symptoms. Wear a mask if you are coughing or sneezing, or if you are caring for someone who is sick. Dispose of your masks into a closed bin and then wash your hands. Check trusted sources regularly for accurate information. Remember, the best prevention is to keep yourself healthy and follow these safe steps.
Okay, but let's have the next one. Lastly, the online class rules. I have prepared a short vid for this one. Okay, po. There you go. Let's just display po. Oh, mukhang ayaw niya ma-play. But anyway, all these online class rules would be for you guys to listen carefully and of course have your attention. And if there should be any questions, just let me know. Contact me directly. You can do that, alright? So let's have our week 5 and 6 for practical research. We have 4 lessons for this week. That would be select relevant literature. Next would be cites related literature using standard style, synthesizes information from relevant literature, and lastly writes coherent review of literature. So we will tackle all these 4 lessons one by one with sets of activities that will help you to get a better understanding of how it is to select relevant literature, cite related literatures using standard styles, especially on referencing. You'll have to synthesize these information from these RRLs and write your RRL. So for the content of your work home learning guide, these are the activities set for you. For lesson 1, you will have to answer first the pretest and do the following tasks such as activity 1.1 titled Answer Me, activity 1.2 Finding My Pair, Deepen, and that would be activity 1.4 Topic That Interests Me. For lesson 2 under science-related literature using standard style, you will have to answer Explore, activity 2.1 Spot It, activity 2.2 Reflection Time, and under Deepen, that's activity 2.3 Cite Me. For lessons 3 on synthesizing information from relevant literature, you only have 2 activities. Activity 3.1 Amazing Maze, the Deepen, also titled activity 3.1. And lastly, for lesson 4, writes coherent review of literature. You only have to answer activity 4.1 Complete Me and activity 4.2 Applying 5 C's. And lastly, the activity on Gauge. Okay. So moving on, let's first discuss synthesizes information from relevant literature. Now, to basically put it, a literature review is a summary of studies related to a particular area of research. When we speak of summary, these are the things that we have already read about it and not entirely putting everything that is in a literature review. It identifies and summarizes all the relevant research conducted on a particular topic. And so you will have to find for similar research studies that would give you an idea of these relevant researches. The literature review surveys scholarly articles, books, and other sources relevant to a particular area of research. You have the library to provide you some books or articles also, but also you can make use of the web, the Google Scholars and the like, or journals, research journals, so that you can get a better view of related literatures of different topics that you have selected from chapter 1. Now, the review should enumerate, describe, summarize, objectively evaluate, and clarify this previous research. When we speak of previous research, these are the studies that were done beforehand, before you were able to select your research topic. The literature review acknowledges the work of previous researchers, and in doing so, it assures the reader that your work has been well conceived. So we have to consider the fact that we are going to make use of these studies that were done before, but let's make sure that we are able to recognize the original writer po. Now, before we move on, you will have to answer the pretest, that is 1 to 15, placed in your modules. After answering the pretest, we'll have the discussion on this following related topics. So you can pause this video for a while answering the pretest, and then continue to listen to the next part of the discussion, because the next part is now on the yellow side. A review of related literature is the process of collecting, selecting, and reading books, journals, reports, abstracts, and other reference materials. The following information may be collected. So these are the things that you will have to collect when you write a review of related literature. First, background knowledge about the problem and associated ideas. Second, theories that give details of the presence of the problem and certain variables that is connected to the problem. Next, data that prove the occurrence and gravity of the problem. Next would be detailed and broad results of related studies. And lastly, gaps and recommendations for additional study specified in related studies. These are all the things that are connected to writing a review of related literature, because when you look for books, journals, even websites, or even researches that were previously done before that is associated with your research idea, then all these things are actually provided. You just have to browse them, read carefully, and gather the proper information so that you will be able to write a review of related literature. The next would be Okay, so let's try to find out the significance and rationale of a related literature. And all these things are about the similarities and differences between the past and present studies. So this is where you get the idea of critical and controversial aspects of the problem, wherein when you cite the similarities and differences, you will be able to connect what happened before and to the things that may happen right now, especially when you're doing the research already. Okay? Now, the first thing that you have to recognize is that it helps recognize and define a research problem. Remember that in writing a research, the first thing that you have to think about is a research problem. What are the problems in the community or in your track, or that interests you and make you write the research? Next would be it gives the researcher a background analysis aspect which have been studied. So it means that this research topic has already been studied before. And so we're doing it again so that we can relate it to the present situation that we're having now. The next is it guides the researcher on what to do on the mechanism of the research methods. It also provides you the thoughts to advance with the study until its conclusion. And so, since it's already provided as an information, we will be able to gather evidences that gives us an advanced thought of the study, while also giving a conclusion particularly. But of course, with these conclusions, we will have to test them eventually. Lastly, it avoids redundant duplication of a study. So it means that when it has already been done, and you will find out that having finished all these, you'll find out that it's just the same, then we can avoid publishing it again for duplication. The thing is, what we can do there is that maybe we can simplify it, or add a wider variety of variables that can be placed in our research. Moreover, reading extensively will enrich your background knowledge of your research topic. That will enable you to establish a good groundwork or course of your research endeavor. This is because you will be reading lots of things about the study that you want to really have. And so reading extensively would give you a good groundwork wherein you will start as the researcher to really fulfill what is needed for your study. Okay? The next part would be, what are the sources of literature review? So where are we going to get this literature review? There are two things. We have primary sources and secondary sources. For primary sources, it provides a first-hand information that is closest to the object of the study. And so it will give us, it will embody us with all the sources that are original, which means that when these are primary sources that are original, these are the research studies that were done before by previous researchers that will give us an original outcome. While the secondary sources provide second-hand data of information. An example could be maybe a related teacher or a student who has already read about the primary source or a book. It's like reading a story. For primary source, you're the one reading the story, while the secondary source would be a teacher or a classmate would tell you about the story. That's the difference between primary sources and secondary sources, to put it simply. Now, there are different types of literature according to Wallace and Ray of 2006. These were cited on page 92 of their study on different types of literature. The first one is theoretical literature. Under theoretical literature, it describes expected or anticipated relationships about the way things happen, theoretically. For research literature, it refers to a report of a systematic investigation that has been undertaken in need to answer a specific problem. It means that these are specific studies that are gained specifically on the chosen field that you have already selected. The next would be empirical research. This deals with the research that was done through the observation and measurement of the world around us. So basically, these are general views, empirical research. Well, the next one is practice literature, written by practitioners about their field of expertise, mostly in medicine or medical researches or education researches, wherein these researchers are able to practice the things that they have discovered in doing their research. And the next would be policy literature. Tells practitioners how to act in a set of circumstances, following rules, norms, and policies as well. So those are the different types of literature. Now let's sum that up. So that's for the first one, lesson 1. First one that we have to remember is that a review of related literature provides a concise summary of information and data findings that describes current knowledge and facts. Again, current knowledge and facts. So these are very timely. Specifically, in a research, when you try to gather related or review of related literature, at least 5 years from today. Okay, so that is why it's current knowledge and facts. Secondly, it provides foundation of knowledge on a topic, and so it defines or identifies areas of prior scholarship to prevent duplication and give credits to researcher. It also helps select appropriate material in designing your research methodology and find relationship among researches. The third would be there's what we call 5 C's. The 5 C's are cite, compare, contrast, critique, and connect. All these things are connected to selecting review of related literature, wherein in citing we are making it available for everyone to see where you took the idea from or where you read the idea from. Compare, wherein the readers will be able to compare, or you as the researcher will be able to compare the ideas that were transcribed from the previous study to the rest of the other studies that are similar. And so while comparing them, you will get an argument that will bring you to a conclusion which will help enhance your study. Okay? We also have what you call contrast. So these arguments are giving information that might be different from what happened as expected in a study. Critique is where you try to not only judge but to also measure the veracity of the ideas that were presented in the review of related literature. And lastly, to make us able to connect to these studies so that we will be able to understand why we are doing the research as well. Now, the fourth one is that there are 2 sources of literature review, and these are primary sources, which contains the first-hand information, and secondary, which contains non-original information. As I've said earlier, to simplify it, first-hand informations are those information that you guys read directly, while the second information would be, the second sources would be all the things that they have told you about. They shared to you, okay? They shared it to you. And lastly, there are 5 types of literature. These are theoretical, research, empirical, practice, and policy literature. That is all about the first lesson. And so, as we are doing this, we have to finish these activities. Activity 1.1, answer me. Activity 1.2, finding my pair. And deepen 1.4, topic that interests me. I believe that these activities are in your module. And so that would be for the first lesson. The first one is that you will have to answer based on the knowledge you have gained, accomplish the activity below. Directions, you will have to identify which are the examples of primary and secondary sources. Write P for primary and S for secondary. Write your answers on a separate sheet of paper. But I believe that you will be provided an answer sheet for this one, so you can answer from there. The activity 1.2, finding my pair, would be listed below are the examples of literature. Your task is to find its pair. You have to match the first box, which is the types of literature. These are theoretical, research, empirical, practice, and policy. And match it to the second box, which are the examples. And write the letters of the correct answer on the third column. Activity 1.4 would be topic that interests me, and so you will only have to answer the blanks there, which are my sources, works to be read, analyzed, and cited. So there will be at least 3 sources. You will have to answer what are the main points or arguments of my sources, how are these points supported, and then you will have to write your answer again. The next would be the body, which you will have to put there the similarities in comparing 2 or more of these articles. And then one could also be the differences. So after the similarities, you can also present the differences. And lastly, you will have to conclude by summarizing why is the topic of this literature review important, and or what should be the next step of this study. This is because you guys were asked to write a research study about one thing in particular from your track. Just follow through from your module so that you can get through with it po. Alright? So that's it for the first part. Let's continue week 5 and 6 on the next video. Good luck! If you have questions, please do not forget and do not hesitate to contact me.